I figured I might add to the equation, y'all. So another thing I used to do is let me turn this on. Another thing, or another thing I kind of remember about my pops. I'm gonna try to take the so-called long way down McKnight or something like that. What I used to do, I used to always, another thing, he had a sense of self-sufficiency about him. That's one thing I forgot. I'm gonna keep adding all these little ideas and little things that I could piece together, bits and pieces. And he ain't never buy a brand new car. You know, he was a big Oldsmobile person, so you know I like Oldsmobiles a lot. And one thing about him is he used to fix his own cars. You know what I'm saying? He'd be out there in the parking lot working on his cars. I think he knew how to drop transmissions, engines, all of that. Like I've never ever seen him bring his car to the shop. Brakes, all of that kind of stuff. I wish he would have kind of taught us some of that, but we got to watch it. So like I say, a lot of this was tacit learning. You know, learning how to tie your shoes, learning how to tie, you know, ride your bike and stuff like that. He didn't really have one of them, well, I can't do it, or I don't know. You know, I don't know wasn't an answer we were able to give. You had to produce answers. You know what I'm saying? You had to, if somebody asked you where something was, you couldn't say, I don't know. Or you couldn't come up with a bunch of excuses as to why something couldn't get done. You know, that wasn't an option for me as a kid. So, you know, that's kind of something, you know, I kind of adopted as I went along in my life, far as the things that I wanted in my life. You know, I wasn't looking for a bunch of blocks and barriers, you know, keeping me, you know, I never liked tons of obstacles, you know, where, oh, it's way out here, so I can't get out here, I can't do this, and I can't do, you know, that wasn't my thing. I'm gonna figure out a way how to, it might take me a little longer, but I'm gonna figure out a way on how to do stuff. So, you know, like, I don't remember seeing my father have tons and tons of excuses about what he couldn't really do. I don't remember him saying that really too much. I don't remember him talking about that. I might have seen some of his limitations, but I don't recall really hearing him say, you know, and it's not like we were living, we weren't really in it, you know, they didn't really borrow, or there was really no debt, so there was no investment or nothing. So there was really no financial holes that I saw that we could get into. I just remember either we may not be having certain things at certain times or whatever, but you know, we had food, so we didn't really realize we were as poor as what we was. You know, I remember a time where I went to the lunch lady, and you know, I was a kid, so I didn't really know, you know, but I never forgot this. I went into the lunch line, and you had to put in this little slip over, you know, if you know, we used to get free lunch, and you marked down how much money you earned, and it was under like how much, what your income per year, and I think ours was under 15 grand. It was something crazy. Like now, if you were to see it, it would be a level of poverty that would be haunting if you're really looking at, you know, how much you live. But see, to us, we had food. So to me, as long as I had my little game and my little bike, you know, I wasn't really tripping. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, in our mind, we weren't, you know, we didn't really think about it. But, you know, the lunch lady, she's taking the slip and she's looking at the amount of money, what our income is. And she says, how do you guys survive? It's old liberal white lady, the same one I was telling you, where I was like, man, I knew as a kid, I ain't really want to go to college. I knew that I could make it without it. She was the one that was so, oh my gosh, you know, you're not going to college. I can't believe it. She was one of those. But she said that, you know, and the other kids, they kind of behind me, you know what I'm saying? So they probably ain't paying much, or never mind themselves. But I never forgot that day when I was giving them, it was a little green slip, and it had 0 to 5,000, Then it had 5,000 to 10,000, and then it had maybe 10 to 15,000, and then 20, and then on. You know what I'm saying? And I remember the box that was checked. The box that was checked might have been 5 to 10, or maybe it might have been 15. I don't even know if it was 15 for what the monthly income was, because you know my mom stayed home with us. My mom didn't do the babysitting thing. You know, that's another thing my dad didn't really like, because they used to make us watch Oprah on them Predators a lot of times about kidnapping and stuff, because folks was snatching kids in Minnesota all the time. And this was happening in the 90s, where kids was getting snatched. We didn't have the social media and the Instagram and the GPS where you could track people and, you know, do your due diligence with technology. We didn't have that at that time. It wasn't that long ago, but we didn't have it. Technology just wasn't, you know, it wasn't where it was, you know, as it is now that I'm giving to y'all. And so they would tell us, don't talk to strangers. You know, I'm gonna do a story time I always forget to do it about. I stopped 2 abductions when I was a kid. They was getting ready to kidnap some kids, and I stopped it. But you know, we knew, they told us don't talk to strangers, and he was adamant. He didn't really like us going other people's houses, and we were upset as kids because we were like, well, damn, man, like I want to hang out with my friends. But see, his ideology was this: I don't know who's at these folks' house unless we know them like that. He was not big on letting us just willy-nilly just be at people's house. You know how like some of these hood rats, they got everybody at their damn house. They got they mama, they cousin, friend, sister, cousin, and something happened to the kids, and you don't never know what's going on, and the family don't want to talk about it. Well, that was so-and-so that might have did something. That the family want to protect the predators in the family, because for whatever reason it is, and don't nobody know nothing and all this. And then you look up and little Riri got a girlfriend now at 18, 19, talking about she experimenting all this bullshit. And you like, well, damn, what happened to little Riri? Well, she was over at so-and-so's house. You didn't know whose house it was, you know, and on with that kind of stuff. So, you know, he did not like us being at other people's houses like that. He, you know, that just wasn't a thing. And now I understand why. I don't let my son just at so-and-so's house and leaving them and all that. And, you know, you got a lot of folks that will do that, and they don't know what's happening to their kids half the time. And you can't track somebody down or to did some of their kids, because they might have been at the house a little bit, and then you folks protecting them and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, you just don't know. So that's one of the reasons why he did not want us at other people's houses. And I understand why. So like I say, I grew up, even though he had left around by maybe 15 or something, I grew up seeing a nuclear family structure as it should be. I, you know, a lot of the kids that grew up in Cedar Riverside and in River Bluff and where I grew up at, you didn't really see their fathers too much. It was a few kids that had fathers, and their fathers that were there that lived in River Bluff, they did not stay there very long. The place we lived was not the place that you just stay there and then you just sit on the system. You're not supposed to do that. A lot of them dudes that I knew that had dads, they didn't stay there for no more than about 6 months, maybe a year at the most. And they up out of there. They moving on up. They didn't use it as a crutch and just stay there. But a lot of the kids I grew up with, man, most of my friends, I ain't meet their dad. I met a few dads, like I met John Taylor's dad. I met, you know what I'm saying? I met a few people that had dads. I had a homie named Chris. His dad stayed right across the street. They was from Mississippi. He stayed like just at the next house over. They moved. They didn't stay there. I remember Colin. I've seen his dad, but he wasn't in the household, but I seen him. And then the Crouches, I seen their dad. You know what I'm saying? So it was very few dads that I seen in Seward, or not Seward, but Cedar Riverside and River Bluff. It just wasn't prevalent. These were single mother homes. About 85 to 90% of the time. So I got to at least see some of that. And then, you know, my grandparents, that was a nuclear family. I didn't grow up in a bastard baby environment. You see what I'm saying? So I got to see a man running a house and what it looks like for a man to operate running a house. You see what I'm saying? So my ideology on that structure kind of set me up a little bit, saying, okay, well, this is something that I could maybe want. You know what I'm saying? I could want, this, and then just augment what my dad did. You see what I'm saying? So we'll upload that and we'll get to the next story.